Hello, welcome to episode 127 of the Noclip podcast. Danny here, coming at you live from I think it's a Radisson Suites in beautiful Annapolis, Maryland, my old stomping grounds. I'm back in the Bay, the old Bay, eating crabs, going to Wawa, doing all the usual stuff on the way back from Ireland because a friend is getting married. So on the way back from California, decided to stop off and talk to these two gentlemen about not Zelda, because we can't talk about Zelda because the spoilers of the Zelda. Jeremy Jane, what are we going to talk about? You only have Zelda written down in your notes.
Okay, so I feel that we can discuss a little bit of Zelda without any spoilers, because I myself have been okay. You know those? Have you guys ever known someone who bit their nails and they got that weird nail polish they paint on that makes them taste bad, and then they don't? You never heard about this?
No, I bite my nails all the time. But you just stick your fingers up your ass. That'll save yourself $5.
I wish my friend had known that in high school. I had a friend who bit their nails in high school, and they had this stuff they would put on them that would make them taste bad, so that they would stop doing it.
Right.
And I feel like Zelda spoilers have been the bad-tasting nail polish of social media for me, because in an attempt to totally avoid spoilers, I have basically become a total social media recluse.
That's great. What a wonderful reason not to go on Twitter or anything else. Are people posting Zelda spoilers on TikTok? I don't know. Frank, are people posting spoilers of Zelda on TikTok?
I feel like it's a lot of the fun and silliness that you can have with the game mechanics is what I've been seeing rise to the top of Zelda. Like,
Right.
I haven't seen anything with like boss fights or story stuff. It's really like, I didn't know you could do this in this game.
But here you
Isn't
go.
that neat?
Here you go.
That's a spoiler.
That's a spoiler.
That's a spoiler.
Exactly.
That's a spoiler.
That's a spoiler. And I think
That's a spoiler.
That's the thing. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This is going to be a spoilerless episode when it comes to Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom.
And Breath of the Wild, hopefully.
And Breath of the Wild as well. We might not talk about Zelda at all. That might maybe. Well, I promise you one thing: there will be no spoilers, because I do feel like myself and Jeremy especially are like sort of maniacs when it comes to spoilers.
Yes.
Like we have a
100%.
sickness when it comes to how sensitive we are to spoilers.
I was thinking about this a lot recently because Zelda has been on my mind. I think for me personally, I've realized that it's like, I wonder if it's like an OCD
Yes,
thing.
100%.
Because when somebody said, because just to give a parallel example, so as to not spoil Zelda, if I'm going to see a movie and someone's like, oh, there's that one part,
Right.
even if they just say that, the whole movie I'm waiting for that one part, and it corrupts the entire experience.
Yes.
It's
100%. So as a OCD sufferer, and I'm not sure if you are too.
Yes, I am as well.
Yeah.
That's why we get on so well.
Yes. Also, intrusive thoughts. Have you had?
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yes.
OCD and intrusive thoughts go hand in hand.
100%.
And so the entire time I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for the thing to happen. And the worst part is someone could say something that's like a joke that has like there's something that doesn't appear in the game. I almost flipped out. This is in the Noclip Discord. Someone posted about an unrelated game, but the name of the game was like Airborne Kingdom. And I was like, oh great, now I know there's an Airborne Kingdom in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh no, there's a game called Airborne Kingdom. I'm losing my mind over here.
Yeah. For people who don't know what intrusive thoughts are, it's basically like unwanted thoughts that your subconscious and sometimes your conscious just decides to send to you. Like, I know it's a part of my brain that does it I'm doing it to myself, but I'm 100% the same way as you. Like, even if somebody says something that isn't in the game, what they said creates like a negative space that then you can sort of like imagine what's happening in there. Like, I find it very hard to like watch movies without deconstructing them in real time and trying to like figure out what's going to happen at the end, which I'm sure lots of people do. But that's why like trailers are like, I think maybe mostly as an editor as well, trailers are just like kryptonite to me, because it's just like, oh, that's what happens in the movie. Okay. There are like some really bad ones. Like, was it the Aliens? What was the not Alien Covenant? What was the one before that? Prometheus. The Prometheus trailer was a particularly ridiculous one, which is literally the entire movie is in the trailer. But there are other ones I just can't watch because I'm just like, oh, I figured it out. Like, I'm having that problem with Dune at the moment, like the Dune 2 stuff, or the Dune Part 2. I'm like, I don't want to know. I don't want to see all this stuff.
I've been pulling a bunch of trailers for the Immortality documentary of old documentaries, or old movies, and I feel like the trailer editors feel so much more justified when they're doing a contemporary trailer for an old movie in showing like the big scenes that happen at the end. So I pulled the Godfather trailer, and they just show the whole ending of the movie.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. So we're not going to spoil Zelda, but watch as we try and do a podcast without spoiling Zelda. Massive thanks, by the way, to all of our incredible Battle Pass holders who, like you, if you're a patron or somebody who likes this podcast, you can support this 100% ad-free podcast, fund our documentaries, and get access to lots of bonuses, including videos, bonus podcast episodes, Discord access, and more over patreon.com/Noclip. I did a thing, it happened in Ireland, where we basically opened up the Patreon to free patrons, and it hasn't rolled out in the sort of substantive way that I was hoping on the Patreon product side. Basically, what I was hoping was that there would be a button you could press that made you a free patron, which there is. Currently, what that does is you basically get an email anytime we post, I think anything, I'm not quite sure, even stuff that you're paywalled for, but what I was going to do basically was add a bunch of content for free patrons. So basically, the patron show would go to also people who are free patrons, and then that would be cool because they can keep in contact with what we're doing. And then, yeah, sure, maybe we upsell some of them, but mostly it's a way of like capturing people who are like, we have lots of people who are a patron of Noclip for like 3 years. Then they're like, I've done my part. And then they send me messages and they say, bye. And I'm like, this would be a good way of basically like holding on to them. And then people who aren't in a position to support us, a way to, give them a sort of like the first step on the ladder if they want to crawl anymore. What Patreon actually put out was, at the moment, we don't have the ability to post to non-patrons, which was the one thing, or non-paying patrons, free patrons, which was the one thing that I was hoping to do. So that's why we set last month's patron show to public, just to at least all those people could see it. Also, it turns out there were 3,500 people following our page on Patreon. So those got converted automatically into free patrons. So that's also why the patron total, which has always been on our Patreon, isn't there anymore. Because right now it says like 7,500, but like 3,500 of those people are not paying. They're just people who followed the page and are net. So I don't want people to think that we're like making twice as much money as we are. So I took it off. So at the moment we're in a weird like little transition period there. Patreon are adding the ability for us to post directly to free patrons, just them or all of our patrons. Apparently in the next while, like I don't know if that's the next couple of weeks, next couple of months. So the rollout of all that stuff will happen when that stuff happens. But basically, I just wanted to get out ahead of that. We basically tried to turn it into something cool that would basically give people a bunch of access they never had before, and then as a bonus to the people in the $5 and $10 tier, we're doing a lot more work on that end. At the moment, we're talking about and sort of already in pre-production on patron exclusive video series and patron exclusive podcasts. The whole let's pull an episode out of this podcast for patrons only thing is sort of done at this stage. We're working on patron exclusive content, and then a lot of that stuff will eventually become public when we do like the next season of that. So that's kind of where we're at with the Patreon stuff. But a massive shout out to all of our intrepid Battle Pass holders who I got postcards for in Ireland, and half of them are in the mail. I got them all around Ireland. The people who I think I've sent them to, I think are James Brown, Jason Drury, Ryan Cobb, Tucker Morgan, Crimson Cyclist, Sven Huster, and Aaron L. White. I think those ones have been sent. And then Tim Robinson, Forrest Pruitt, Andy Fegan, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Camera Lad, George Shakotis, Jacob Godserve, and Toya Tiliev. You will be getting the slightly less cool Dublin Zoo postcard, because the other postcards I lost when I was going to send them. I couldn't find them I think I left them in my parents' house. So I had to get them on the final day in Dublin Zoo, and then I didn't have time to send them. So you're going to be getting Dublin Zoo postcards with American stamps, which may be the most rare postcard you can get in the world, because who the fuck would do that? Some of these postcards are going back to Ireland. So it's just makes absolutely no sense. So look forward to those. We always said we'd do something weird for the Battle Pass holders every once in a while. You all get individual postcards with weird messages from me on my vacation. Okay, Zelda. Let's talk about Zelda without talking about Zelda.
Okay.
Zero spoilers whatsoever. I already know I'm going to talk about the controls in a second, very vaguely, without speaking at all about the gameplay mechanics. Frank, do you have any thoughts about Zelda that reveal 0% about what Zelda is?
For me, it's rewarding to find a game in a franchise that trumps all the other ones before it, in the sense of like, oh, this might be my favorite one of this series.
Ooh, and you're coming off Breath of the Wild.
Yes, and the interesting thing is like I did not like fully enjoy my time in Breath of the Wild, because the first half of it I was playing it and then I got bored, and then the second half I was kind of rushing to beat it. With Tears of the Kingdom, I'm not interested in beating it. I'm interested in like, enjoying it and like actually like enjoying my time and enjoying the discovery, enjoying the mystery. So it's nice. Like, I don't know, I feel like when I was playing Breath of the Wild, even then I was like looking up a guide, like what order do I do these dungeons in? Where do I get the best armor? And now it's like, I don't care. I did Breath of the Wild. That felt like the homework. I just want to enjoy my time in it. And I think even also with every other Zelda game, I've always come to it late. So like even Ocarina, I had to use a guide. Wind Waker, I loved. It was the art style was cute. I still used the guide. So this time it's kind of like rethinking my approach to like one of these games. It's like, let me just find out, let me fail, enjoy that, and have fun. And it's genuinely so funny and charming. But
Are you like on the social media kick for this? Because I'm in a weird spot because I didn't have it for like I only picked it up like 2 days ago, so I'm pretty early into it. And I'm trying not to be like, I don't even know if it's spoilers, because it's kind of like, it's a bit like the like first couple of weeks of a FromSoft game where like there is something cool about like having like maybe just one layer deeper than you are get scratched so you could see the possibility space underneath. But obviously that's a real like thin line to then just having like, full scale. Like Elden Ring, the tricky one was always, if you saw a new biome, like that was a killer because seeing all those new areas was super fun. But like if you saw, I don't know, an innovative way of killing a baddie or solving a puzzle, that's kind of interesting. So it's like in a way I can't tell if I should be looking more or if I'm looking the appropriate amount. Like, would I enjoy this more if I was actually seeing how other people were playing it? I don't know.
I feel like a lot of the joy from the game is just making those discoveries on your own and feeling that like I just learned something. Because I like on my social media or even when I'm like streaming it, like I'll see people come up with solutions and share that with me. I'm not going out of my way to find it. If it naturally gets like retweeted or shared with me, I'm like, okay, that's cool. And again, yeah, it's just usually it's mechanics, but like I was doing a shrine. And when I had that moment of like, oh my God, that's how you'd solve that. It was magical. It was really fun. But I'm also someone, I don't hold any particular game that like I'm like a savage where it's like I just want to devour it and move on to the next thing. So I have no, yeah. So for me, I don't mind spoilers, but it's working out the climate I'm enjoying it in. But yeah, I'm not going on. I'm not checking the Reddit of like Tears of the Kingdom. Not yet, anyways. I'm still enjoying it because I feel like the game has so much to read on its own. Yeah.
Yeah, I truly feel like I've been joking with my friends that I want to write a hard drive, the Onion for video games.
Yeah.
I want to write a hard drive like fake IGN article that's called like 100 moments of spontaneous joy to spoil for yourself. The moments in this game that like I totally understand the appeal of posting, a little emergent thing happens. Like let me give an example from Breath of the Wild so as to not talk about Tears of the Kingdom.
Breath of the Wild spoilers incoming, everyone. Cover your
also
ears.
like system physics spoilers. Remember in Breath of the Wild people were like, oh my God, you can just time stop a boulder and then smash it a million times and hop on and then you can launch yourself on a boulder. Those things, there's an extent of playing with the mechanics that I will never realize.
Yes.
And it's fun to see those things after I've 80% of the way through the game, see what people are doing. It's like, oh cool, you made like a satellite out of a boulder somehow. But I feel like there maybe like 90% of those emergent systemic interactions are within my ability to discover. And when those moments happen, I feel like that's why I think this game is so brilliant, and that's why I'm enjoying it so much, is because I feel like the mechanics it introduces are so, like, the feeling of just play and experimentation that this game gives me is unparalleled as far as I'm concerned. My concern coming off of Breath of the Wild is that this was going to feel too similar, and instead I feel like it created such a strong foundation that the ways in which they've been able to experiment and push the envelope and give you new mechanics to play with is like that's the joy. This is such a, like, what's the word, extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. This is such an intrinsically motivated game for me,
right,
that when I solve a little puzzle or figure out what the design intent of a puzzle room is or a shrine and overcome it, like, it doesn't matter what's in the chest. I don't care if it's 50 rubies because
that's a good point.
It's so rewarding for me to solve these puzzles. And yeah, I don't know. I'm baffled that this game exists and is as fun as it is.
It's weird. I'm only like a couple hours in, and I'm kind of in a, like, I'm trying to meet it maybe where it is, because again, like you said, like, I wonder how people felt when Majora's Mask came out, because
that's what I've been thinking too.
Yeah, because like, if you're looking for more of the same, maybe that would be fun, or maybe you'd be disappointed. Or if you're looking for something totally different, expectations so tricky. And I remember in Breath of the Wild, there was this like sort of initial area that you had to get through before the rest of the world explored. And I'm wondering if something similar is happening to me. And I'm trying to not rush through some of this stuff, but like the thing that I enjoyed most about Breath of the Wild was exploring. So I'm just trying to get to the point where I feel like I can do some exploring. But the one thing that this brought up to me, and I swear to God, maybe this just goes to explain how little I use my Nintendo Switch, but I swear to God, I spend the first like 5, 6, 10 hours of these games just trying to figure out which fucking button is X and Y and A and B. It's all backwards. It's all like what? Where is the Y buttons? Like on the top, is it? And then like, it's a good thing that on the display they generally let you know where on the quadrant it is, because like, I'm constantly, and also it's just like such a, I know I'll get used to it. I know I got used to it in Breath of the Wild, but there's so many weird little subsystems and like combinations of right click and this D-pad and that thing and clicking this one that sometimes I'm just like, Jesus Christ. Like if I wonder, do they have a problem with people who don't play games? Like the commercial, do you see that commercial for this game where it's the guy on the bus and he's like bored on the bus, commute home from work. He used to be young. He used to play games. Now he's a dad and he has a suit and a commute. And then he gets Zelda and his life is good again. And way awesome. And it's like, do people like that play these games? Because like, it's like fucking trying to like rub your belly and tap your head or whatever. Like some of the shit. And it's like, and I'm fine because I'm like a 37-year-old loser who's been playing games nonstop for 30 years. But like, even me, I'm like, Jesus, like, so does like, does your buddy who hasn't played Zelda in 20 years pick this up and go, what the fuck are video games? This used to be 2 buttons, man.
Yeah, it's like flying a helicopter now.
Yeah.
You have to like check all your meters and call base.
Yeah, you got to make the potion with oh shit, I spoiled something. You make a potion.
That's right. We can talk about Breath of the Wild. It's 6 years old.
I didn't even mean make a potion. I wasn't even think. I was talking about a meal. You gotta make a meal for your resistance, or just like Breath of the Wild. And they're like, I don't know, where's the button I press? I don't know. I'd love to like talk to somebody who hasn't played a Nintendo game in 15 years, or like only play Breath of the Wild and this. Like, is this game more complicated than Breath of the Wild initially? Because I know like there's a lot of like learned knowledge going into this. You know what I mean? Like, I know about lots of these systems. I don't know if it's reteaching me any of them, but I know about
it. Definitely is
them.
Reteaching some of it. I would say that the game mechanics in Tears of the Kingdom are slightly more complex because they seem to be taking a bunch of lessons from the mechanics of Breath of the Wild and then extrapolating them even further and seeing how far they can push things like that. So yeah, maybe I'm curious. Maybe I'll make my parents play it when I see them in a couple weeks. They're coming to visit, so I'll bring my Switch and see what they can make of this game.
Yeah, make something out of that Cthulhu jelly. What's it called? Chuklu? What are they called?
Oh yeah.
I can never pronounce that thing.
Choo-choos?
Choo-choo. Is it just choo-choos?
Is Choo-choo Charles?
Like
Aren't they the
choo-choo-
little elementals?
Yeah, is that what they're called? Choo-choos?
Choo-choo Zelda.
Choo-choo jelly? Choo-choo.
Choo-choos. The jelly guys.
Yeah. I like Cthulhu jelly. That's what I like to call it.
Cthulhu jelly definitely sounds less appetizing.
Frost Cthulhu jellies.
Yeah, this game is like, it's really unbelievable.
Do you like this video game?
I have had okay, as anyone who listened to the podcast last week knows that I was coming into this very, very skeptical. Because Zelda's probably like Ocarina of Time is I think about Ocarina of Time probably more than any other video game ever created. Zelda means a lot to me. And so anytime there's a new one, I'm like, okay, is this like, are we jumping the shark yet? Is this like, like around Twilight Princess? I was like, oh no, they've destroyed my childhood.
That was my first Zelda. Was it?
No, was it?
Actually,
Skyward
Wind
Sword?
Waker was.
Oh, Wind Waker.
Yeah,
Okay, that's a
so
good
that was
one.
pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, Wind Waker's good. But the stagnant air of my cynicism has been blown away by the revivifying wind of Tears of the Kingdom. It's like there's such a feeling of childlike joy that I get playing this game, and it's just like, I don't know. I think about this a lot when I do game dev, that sort of the like base elemental version of the process of prototyping is making a mechanic and then figuring out things to do with it. And I play a lot of like itch games and just like little tiny prototypes that people are working on and stuff to see what other people are working on. And it's interesting because I feel like amateurish stuff, my own work included, is stuff where they find an interesting mechanic, but then they don't have the chops to kind of flesh it out, to tease it out and make a bunch of interesting rooms or setups to execute that mechanic, or to execute with that mechanic. And I feel like Tears of the Kingdom is, every time they introduce a new way to use the mechanics, my brain just explodes in a fireworks show of dopamine. Like it is impossible for me to capture and express here the level of like childlike joy this game gives me.
Damn. It's weird. I didn't come into Breath of the Wild with any nostalgia for Zelda whatsoever. Like I had folks who have followed my Twitch channel over the years will know, or my YouTube channels would know, that I tried to complete Ocarina of Time on a live stream thing, and got like 7 episodes in, and then I don't know, just got bored of it. Like I never got back to it at all. I mean, this was like years after the fact. And like largely, yeah, even like Twilight Princess and Wind Waker were games that I bounced off of. I'm not a big Nintendo handheld person either, so I know there's some really good DS ones, but I just never did it. But Breath of the Wild 100% worked for me. It was just like, it was an open world game with all these emergent mechanics and a really rich, beautiful world to explore. Like, couldn't have asked for anything more. So yeah, I'm not enjoying it. Like, I'm enjoying it, but I feel like I need to play a little bit longer before I can but here's the thing, this whole thing is really funny because like I feel like the minute the reviews came out, like the critical response or like any sort of like larger conversation about this is basically like completely invalid. Like, people don't, if Zelda's on the brain, I know you want to like talk about Zelda with your friends and maybe hear what other people say they like it too, but like there's no point in reading the reviews in my head. It's like, you just like, oh, the game's good, go play the game. We're all playing the game. Everyone's playing the game. I'm sure people are playing other games at the moment as well who aren't into this stuff, but it just seems like there are some games that come out and you just don't need to like consume any content about them at all. Like, you just need to go, oh, it's good, glad it's good, goodbye.
That's all I want to know when I go into, like, for a movie, a video game, a book, anything. I want to, the minimum amount I can know. Like, if I know I want to consume a piece of media and I know nothing about it, that is the ideal situation. The only exposure I need to media is like, convince me that I want, that this thing is worthwhile for me. And the least amount of information I can gather in that process, the better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Frank, any final thoughts on Zelda before we get out of this spoiler-free conversation?
I mean, honestly, it just comes down to, it's like, I can't wait to play more, which is probably the best thing you could say.
Let's wrap this podcast up. All right, we're out of here. See you, everyone.
We'll just sit here in silence playing Zelda for 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Have you managed to squeeze in any more Japanese dovetail videos into your
so many
content? Yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah. I've been mortis and tenening over
I was
here.
shouting mortis and tenon at my car radio when you were.
Knew it. I got a Ryoba saw. which is I can go get it for the YouTube viewers. A ryoba saw it's a Japanese pole saw, so like
Okay.
a Western hand saw. You know, when you push, the teeth are oriented so that it cuts when you push.
It's backwards, right?
This is backwards, so it cuts when you pull. So it's incredibly precise. Like I've been cutting edges of boards I've been cross-cutting edges that look like they're machine cut. It's insane.
Is it heavy or does it wobble?
No, it's light. It's light. I'll go get it. I'll get
Okay.
it. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll grab it.
Man, you ever done any woodworking, Frank?
In 7th grade, I took like an industrial workshop class in middle school.
Cool.
But don't remember anything.
So is that like a one semester or like a year or?
It's like one semester, and I feel like it was us like gluing popsicle sticks. It was
Okay.
very minimal.
I did junior cert materials technology wood, so I did 3 years of woodworking. Oh, look at that. Jeremy is, I would say that looks almost like a spatula. Like it looks like something that like your uncle uses on the grill.
To make eggs or something.
Or
Yeah.
to flip burgers outside on the barbecue. It's a double-edged saw as well. You see,
It's got a beechwood handle.
it's got a
yeah,
really
so
long handle.
it's got a very long handle, and you kind of hold it like in the middle, so it's like a balanced weight. But it's got one set of teeth for cross cutting, one set of teeth for rip cutting, and yeah, this thing rocks.
Can you explain the difference between those two cuts?
Just the direction on the board you're cutting, whether you're cutting across the grain or like with the direction of the grain.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Yep.
Man, I bet the woodworking YouTube world is deep. I bet
It's insane.
has
I've been
to be.
going down such a rabbit hole, dude. It's like unbelievably deep. There's this one guy I highly recommend, even if you have no interest in woodworking, I recommend everyone go look up Mr. Chickadee. He's this dude in I think he's in like Kentucky or Tennessee. He's like this ex-military guy who decided to learn about wood joinery and woodworking and stuff. And he works almost exclusively with hand tools. And he builds these he builds entire houses using joinery and doesn't use a single nail. And he'll just this is what I think I described this on the podcast last week. But he like doesn't even build a foundation. He just balances the house on
like
rocks.
stones. I'm looking at
On
that
stones.
exact like this thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you were
Watch that video.
When you were talking last week about the Japanese builders, not even like no foundation, not even like staking, timbers into the ground or doing a frame or anything. They're just like straight up cutting the frame of the house around the rocks on the like that
Yeah.
sounded good. But this guy is literally putting timber frame into like a little sill, I guess it's called, like a little patch of I don't think it's concrete. It's like a stone or something. That's
Oh,
crazy.
yeah, so they're rocks. So they're just big rocks, and then he puts them on a gravel bed, and then he scribes the edge of the post and cuts it to the shape of the rock so it sits perfectly on it.
Man, the things people do because they hate nails.
It's so cool, dude. That channel is unbelievably. He doesn't do commentary either. He'll do commentary in the closed captioning if you want him to comment on what's going on. But it's just the sound of him sawing for it's like ASMR.
Oh my god! Tell me about how good does your house smell? Where do you do this? Indoors or outdoors?
Usually in my front yard if I'm sawing stuff up. But with the chisels, I've been doing it inside. I'll just put on music and go sit shirtless in the front room and just like chisel wood.
You got a mallet as well, or are you hand chiseling, or what are you doing?
I got a mallet as well. I got a rubber mallet. Although I
you
want
got
to
a vice? You got a vice grip out there?
No, that's the one thing I'm really lacking right now. I have a bunch of C-clamps and stuff
Cool.
because they're useful for lighting as
I
well.
was about to say using lighting equipment to do
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it's funny because I was a carpenter all throughout high school for work, and then getting into cinematography, I was like, oh, this is like carpentry. You're just like, being a grip is like being a carpenter's assistant. But yeah, no, it's very like. I don't know. There's something so I mentioned this last week as well. It's like 3D modeling, but there's something so calming about it, and also it's nice to have a hobby that doesn't involve my computer and also doesn't involve driving to go on a hike or something.
Yeah.
It's just like I don't know, man. Cutting wood is like it's healing. You just like shave. It's like shaving with the chisel. It's like shaving. You know when people do like shaved chocolate at like a Ghirardelli Square like fancy chocolate place? It's like I just feel like I'm like shaving chocolate. It's so weird. I don't know, man. It's very like. Viscerally satisfying in such an odd way.
Do you have a stove or anything in your house that you can use the like shavings for or anything?
Yes,
like
I do.
So everything gets used, man. That's
Every part of the buffalo, baby.
That's the dream. I never used like power tools. When we did woodworking, it was all hand tools except for like a circular saw a little bit, but mostly like I'd say the jigsaw was probably the one Do you ever use a jigsaw like to just like cut those boards?
Yeah, the one I hate is I hate table saws, and the reason is so as I mentioned, I was a carpenter in high school at my uncle's shop, and he had another guy who worked with him who was kind of like his
No
go-to
fingers,
guy.
Larry.
And he I swear to fucking God, he had 8 fingers.
He had what?
He had 8 fingers.
8. Oh
He
shit.
had 8 fingers, and
Including
it was
thumbs.
including thumbs. And I'll tell you, it was not a birth defect. He had 2 table saw accidents in his career, and I would say he had like 8. He probably had like 8 3/4 fingers if we're being real litigious about this.
Man, that was you ever watch those videos of like modern table saws or circular saws? For people who don't know, these are like the big ones that you like cut, like, you know, the smallest thing you cut would be like a 2x4 on it, and the biggest thing would be like a log, and it's just like a table with a big fast sword. And they now have the ones that like the electricity in your finger shuts it off or whatever,
Yeah.
like which is crazy. I'm not sure if I told this story before, but we had they did up our woodworking lab when I was in my 3rd year of high school, so this would have been my 3rd year of doing woodworking, and we were like the first kids in the classroom, and our teacher in my school was like really excited to show off this new tech room, and it was amazing because our previous woodworking room was literally a shack across the street from the school before, which was amazing. It had been used for like 50 years and was just like all the tools were ancient, but it was a lot of fun. But this was like a new, beautifully new tables, new walls. It looked awesome. And he was showing us all like the bits and bobs, and then he did the safety demonstration of the circular saw and what happens if any accident happens. And it's all like the big red buttons all over the walls, and if anything happens, hit this thing and it'll shut the saw off. So he spins up the saw to like do the demo. This isn't a gruesome story, don't worry. He spins up the saw to do the demo. And he's like, and now what you do, and he was from Cork in the southwest of Ireland, so he's like, and now what you do is you hit this button, and he hits the button. So the thing is like, and he hits the button, and it goes, takes like 90 seconds for it to stop. So they had basically installed the safety thing completely wrong. So instead of like engaging the brakes, it just cut the power. So the thing was just like free spinning. So if there was
the kid who's being dragged into the saw is just being dragged at a slightly slower rate.
Yeah, maybe in a less efficient, more painful way,
Yeah.
Like maybe a clean cut would be better. And the face, just blood drained out of his face, like shit. Like, I think we have to like call up the electricians or.
Oh my God, that's cool that you had a wood shop in high school.
Yeah.
I was always we went to, there was like a vocational, Whittier Vo Tech was like the vocational school in my area, and when I was in high school we did a field trip to go to the vocational school, and they were like, hey, if you want to like learn to cook or woodwork or fix cars instead of do like algebra,
Right.
maybe this is the place for you. And I instantly was like, oh, that seems sick. And my parents were like, no, you should go like get a liberal arts degree and like be like educated. I was like, no, I just want to like cook and like I want to make things with my hand. I don't know. It was weird. I always feel like it was like, I feel like those trades should be more celebrated or something.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there was like a sense of shame when kids were like, I'm gonna like go to vocational school, and it's like, no, that's cool.
Yeah, I didn't realize. I heard about the vocational school stuff from my wife when I moved over here. So the reason we had a big one, because it was Waterford is a largely working class city in the south east of Ireland, and like a lot of my friends would have traditionally left after what's called the junior cert. It's basically we do an exam at the end of school called the leaving cert, which is when you're 18 or whatever, and then there's like a mini one when you're 15. And what would happen is people would leave to do to go work in a trade. Like they'd pick up an apprenticeship. So a lot of these guys would have dads who were carpenters or sparks or plumbers, and they would already be like working weekends with their dad or their uncle or whatever. And then once they did their junior cert, they'd sort of leave and then just go into an apprenticeship and work and do their X amount of years and get paid. And, these lads would be really excited because they're getting paid, and they'd have cars and they'd be able to like, have money and work and learn their skill. And basically, a big part of what was going on when I was in school was a way of trying to keep those kids in school until they did their leaving cert. So they had a bit more, I guess, paperwork, and but instead of making them, like you said, learn algebra or business studies or geography or science or something they're not actually interested in, at least having like a sort of a more cohesive plan, I guess. I think it was called Leaving Cert Applied at the time, which sort of like, applied like you're, I don't know, applying yourself a bit more or something. I'm not quite sure what the name was about, but they had like metalwork, woodwork, all that sort of stuff up to the point when you were 18. I bounced out when I was 16 because I just wanted to do it because it was fun. I didn't think I was very good at it, and I definitely didn't want to do a Leaving Cert exam in it because I wouldn't have been very good. Because in Ireland you have to do like we don't have like an SAT or anything. You have to do like 7 subjects for your Leaving Cert, and your top 6 get graded out of 100. It's one exam. I think it's different now. I think maybe now they do like, they take your averages over the year, but we basically had 1 week where our entire exams happened, and that was what college you got to go to. It's a point system, and you just had to like get the right amount of points or you didn't get into the college. And then if you fucked up, you just gotta do them again in August. And if you fuck them up, then you got to do the whole year again. So that was a bummer, but yeah, woodworking was a lot of my mates. And then they all went to Australia because the housing market crashed in Ireland when we graduated, and there was no work for any of those dudes. And now I know like 50 people in Australia because they all went to work in trades over there.
There's a lot of house building in Australia going on, or
more than there was in Ireland, I guess. And also,
why Australia specifically?
better.
Just because just good weather.
Immigration, I think, is easier for Irish people, or like because you can't like just move to America. Like you need, but I think in Australia you could get like a 1-year workers visa or something, and then just keep applying to it. I think it's just an easier. It's not easy, but it's an easier one.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it's crazy.
Well, I'm gonna put your woodworking experience to work someday when I'm building a house and I need you to come help me like raise a wall.
Jesus Christ. I think the idea of doing like dovetail joints for like walls or floors, like the second story floor sounds absolutely terrifying.
Don't worry, honey, it's held together by nothing.
They're not, yeah. Or like pegging, like pegging, but like putting pegs, peg. I can go to your house and peg you if you want.
It's such a big part of woodworking is just knowing you gotta just go Google pegging and you'll see what's up.
If you're bad at woodwork, which I am, I'm not like good. It's been like I'm 30 years rusty now or 25 years rusty. But like, even like odd jobs around the house, you can always just hit more nails in. If you think you did a bad job, you can just drill a couple of more holes. Like
true.
You could add more Gorilla Glue. It's fine. If you're like doing this whole thing on joints like that. That's terrifying. That's like, what did I say? Measure twice, cut once. Like, you're going to be measuring like 100 times for any of those.
I know. So talk about OCD measuring, like, I'm going to be like, all right, I think it was 17.5 centimeters. I'm like pretty sure, but I don't know, man. This is my house. So
it's mad.
Let's keep measuring.
In a way, this is not dissimilar to the gameplay loop of Tears of the Kingdom, but we're not going to talk about. We're not here to talk about Tears of the Kingdom or making things or constructing things. I went to see the Mario movie yesterday.
Yes, I want to hear. I want my experience of the Mario movie to be hearing about your experience of the Mario movie.
Okay, so it'll be spoiler free because the story could not be less important. It is the story is there to get you from reference to reference. That is it. This is pure reference fodder. It's nostalgia. What was it Frank said to me? You're talking about nostalgia goggles, Jeremy. I think you guys were having a chat. It's pure nostalgia porn. Oh look, there's Cranky Kong. Oh look, there's Jumpman. Oh look, it's the Charles Martinet pops up. His voice is in that guy for us. It's just like all that goodness. So my kid woke up at like 3 a.m. when we arrived here the first night because she's all jet lagged and shit. So I just needed to do something. So I brought her to beautiful Annapolis Mall here in Maryland and realized that most of the mall is shut down, but they did still have the cinema. So I went up and it was like 10 minutes late for Mario Bros, which just means that I missed 10 minutes of trailers. So we got our tickets and went in and the theater was basically empty. And it was at that point that she told me that she had already seen this movie in her cousin's house in Ireland because my brother apparently had an illegal rip of it that he showed them, which I did not know when I spent $30 on cinema tickets. I hadn't seen it, so that was great. So at one stage it was really scary, and there was a scary, she's not even 5, and I'm like, "Are you okay? Is this scary?" And she's like, "Don't worry, he gets captured and brought to prison." So I was like, so she was like consoling me, like, don't worry about it, Dad. It's all cool. It's not that bad. People were like, dunking on. I mean, if you go in with like absolutely low expectations that this is just like, merchandising fodder and nostalgia porn, then I think it's totally fine. I think the voice acting is pretty good. I think it's Keegan Michael Key is Toad. He is surprisingly good as it in it. The animation looks cool. I think Jack Black as Bowser is pretty funny. He has a musical bit in it, of course. They, cram in as much of this Mario nonsense as they possibly can. It's like the Doom movie where there's a bit where it's like they're doing a 2D Mario bit, and here's the Mario Kart bit, and here's some Donkey Kong stuff, and here's the, I don't know, like the big finale fight. It's like I needed to burn 2 hours, and it was a pretty good way of burning 2 hours. It was very colorful and beautiful, and the story, if you had 5 minutes to write the synopsis as you would imagine it on the back of a napkin before the thing started, or like 2 minutes into the movie, you would probably basically get most of it. It is exactly what it is, but yeah, it's fine. I don't, people were dunking at it. I think maybe, it's not fucking Citizen Kane, man. It's Mario. There's no story there. They kind of add more story to it than there is in reality, and that's fine too.
I feel like my reservations about the Mario movie are entirely rooted in the fact that you could describe probably like 40% of the movie tonally, and it would be completely ambiguous whether you were talking about Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or the Mario movie. You'd be like, okay, it's a bright, colorful movie with a lot of bombastic action going on. Chris Pratt is in it. A lot of needle drops going on.
Yeah, there's a baddie and there's a group. They get the whole group together to fight the baddie.
Yep.
Yeah, they're actually weirdly, maybe the one thing that does stand out as tonally odd is that there is a lot of contemporary music. Like
that's what I've heard.
They do a lot of like
Back in Black or whatever, Thunderstruck.
Yeah. It's like, I guess they have to, because what else do they do? Like dip. Like,
yes, throw the fucking Koji Kondo in there. You have an unbelievable. When I'm sitting, okay, none of however many Noclip docs I've edited, they would not have happened if not for 5-hour playlists of Nintendo music on YouTube.
Oh, really? Is that your jam?
That's my jam. I just look up like JRPG music compilations and just listen to the sounds of 1997. I
mean, they have like a lot of it in there, but yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe they could have used it for those bombastic beats. It feels very like Path of Least Resistance, the entire thing. Like, of course they use Thunderstruck because like that's a song that people know, and that's like, oh, I know what emotion this is meant to generate in me.
It just feels like a car commercial to me whenever hear whenever been a long time since a rock and roll comes in a movie. I'm like, this is a fucking Cadillac commercial with Mario in it.
What's fun, like this whole thing feels like a Coca-Cola commercial to me because the way they talk about it, how like I think it's Coca-Cola invented the whole advertising mindset of just constantly tapping the button, like being present in monoculture as much as possible. Like Coca-Cola don't advertise around campaigns. They don't advertise around like special deals or anything like that. They just remind you, hey, Coca-Cola. Remember Coca-Cola? Coca-Cola. So then when you're like looking to buy a drink, you're like, oh yeah, Coca-Cola. There's no game that they're trying to sell off the back of this movie. There's no like movie franchise probably they're trying to sell off the back of this movie. It's just made so you get reminded about Mario again.
It's just like the bell in the meditation, a guided meditation bell that's supposed to bring you back to present, right. But it's just reminding you of the existence of products. Yeah,
Mario. Yeah, do you remember Mario?
The new slogan of Coca-Cola should be Coca-Cola. It exists. It still exists. It's
like and it is funny that this movie came out around the time of like a big Zelda launch as well, where like this is the least Mario time ever. Actually, it's like yin and yang. You know what I mean? Like it's like Link and Mario are on opposite sides of the fucking Nintendo celestial calendar. And
no Zelda cameos, no Link cameos in the Mario movie.
I don't want to spoil it, but nope.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't think there's any cameos. I think there's nobody. I don't think there's anyone who appears that hasn't been in a game with Mario. So DK is obviously in it. I don't know if like Cranky Kong was ever in the same movie. I guess Mario Kart blows the whole thing open. But yeah, I guess Zelda and Link were in Mario Kart, but they did some fun stuff. There's a whole bit where they're like making the Mario Kart like you do in like Double Dash Since, where you can do your, you know, wheels and body and parasol or whatever. And there's like a guy, you know, making it based on what they. It's interesting. It does a lot of like enjoyable depth of field. You know that? Like I feel like most of these movies are just watchable because they do cool depth of field tricks with like beautiful, colorful graphics. It's just like it's like Instagram, like VFX porn. You know what I mean? Like stuff that just
Instagram.
It looks nice, and you're just watching the thing that looks nice. That's what this. Maybe that's. I don't know if that's like what theater is. I don't know if you asked Werner Herzog or Scorsese if what filmmaking is, and they'd say, "Oh, it's just looking at things that look nice." But that's what this movie is.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, you could make a case that that's what Hitchcock referred to as pure cinematics.
Yes,
you know,
there you
it's
go.
Just it's the image is doing the heavy lifting.
The image is doing
Although
all the work.
It feels a little cosmetic. I feel like I'm sort of bastardizing the legacy of Hitchcock by joking about this.
Hitchcock hated subtext or narrative or any type of. It's just pure visuals. So yeah, I think it's like if you are bored one day or you want to get high or you know, I don't know, your child needs 2 hours of entertainment
to get high,
then go and check out the Mario Bros movie. She can just get high on popcorn, man. These kids, you just give them any little tiny bit of sugar and you're off to the races. So that's my review of the Mario movie. It's not even called a Mario movie. What's it called? Super Mario Bros. Something.
I have no idea. I could not tell you. I can tell you that a better Mario movie to watch would be the Mario and Luigi Adventure to Rescue Princess Peach or whatever the fuck.
Is this the one you made? Is this not? This is not the John Leguizamo one. This is the.
This is the 19.
I want to watch that one.
87 anime one. I want to do a whole like Noclip thing where I make you guys watch it and we talk about it.
You talked about this before. I do want to kind of do this.
We this was off the record. We were talking about this in a secret Noclip meeting, but this movie has things in it that end up in Mario games like 10 years later that did not exist at the time. Example, in the final showdown with Bowser, he grabs him by the tail and he swings him around in a circle and throws him.
The first time he did that?
It's the first time it's ever happened.
Whoa.
This was the 1980s. This was like an animated Mario thing from the 80s. And I don't think that... the first other example I know of that is Mario 64, obviously, which is several years later. So, pivotal moment in the Mario franchise.
Forbidden knowledge of the Mario franchise.
Yeah, it's sort
like
of a Lovecraftian knowledge.
Dead Sea Scrolls of Mario lore.
Yeah, the whole movie's in Coptic. You have to get like a classic scholar.
My goodness. All right, we've managed to not spoil Zelda for 50 minutes, even though that's the only game any of us have played for the past 7 days. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
I played a cool little game that I don't have much to say about it, but I played a game by Chelsea Saunders called Protoworld. It is a work in progress sort of prototype game. I guess Chelsea Saunders has done work on Deltarune as well, which I
cool.
did not know. But
what's it called? Protoworld?
Protoworld.
Is it itch or Steam or what is it?
It's an itch game, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's sort of. I assume it's sort of like Prototype World is the name because it feels like it's a sort of like a repository for a bunch of different game mechanics. But I came across Chelsea Saunders' 3D art and was curious what they had been working on, and came across this feedback export of the Unity project where they put all of their prototypes called Protoworld, and
nice.
It was really fun. It's really it's like a delightful little. It just every single section is like, here's a new mechanic, here's a new mechanic, here's a new mechanic.
Is it that guy?
Yes, yeah, that's it.
That's cool.
So yeah, it's cool. Yeah, the art style is absolutely gorgeous. So it seems like maybe they haven't put out any updates for it in a while. I'm not sure if it's still an active project, but it's free if you're looking. It's you're a little dinosaur who can roll around as a ball, and it's isometric. So it almost reminded me a little bit of. Do you guys ever play Kirby's Dream Course?
No.
For the Super Nintendo, Kirby golf game.
Mm-mm. Oh, really?
Yeah. Kirby golf game where Kirby is the golf ball and you shoot him around. It's actually the only game. This is hold on. I have a prop for this.
He's got a prop. He's got a Kirby prop. He's got to take out his Kirby fleshlight. They should be a
Is-
Kirby fleshlight. If ever there was a Nintendo character.
Will you fuck
it should
Kirby's
be a
mouth?
fleshlight. I mean, I wouldn't, but you know.
My chair broke. One of the screws fell out of my chair and it broke.
Wow.
This is Kibi.
Patreon.com/Noclip. Get Jeremy
We
a new
need
chair.
chairs. This is Kibi. This is not Yellow Kirby. Yellow Kirby is a different character. This is Kibi, who is a yellow Kirby-looking like character.
Okay.
And Kibi is a character that canonically only appears in Kirby's Dream Course, the golf game. Is when you're the second player, you play as Kibi, the yellow Kirby. But there's another character called Yellow Kirby that's in other Kirby games, and that is not Kibi.
But that's not Kibi.
That's not Kibi. Kibi is an ontologically separate entity.
Because they probably couldn't fit yellow Kirby on the screen.
Yeah, true.
Super Nintendo.
Although I feel like Kibi might be like a pun on how you say yellow in Japanese or something. I remember reading something about this.
It's dangerous territory there, Jeremy.
No, it's not. This is elementary school vocabulary. But yeah, so that's Kibi. That's your Kibi lesson for today.
Are you sure that's Kibi that you have there? How do you know that's not yellow Kirby?
Because this came with a tag, which I have since taken off, that said Kibi on it.
How did you get merch from a fucking weird Kirby offshoot character that was only in one golf game?
Because I have a significant other who is equally strange as I am.
What weird stores what grocery stores do you shop at that you can find?
I have no idea.
Kibi merch?
She bought me this Kibi, and she also bought me this Squaresoft hoodie, which it was funny. She and I were talking about Japan when she was out here recently, like potentially going to Japan one day, and she had never seen the behind the scenes of you and I walking around Tokyo.
Oh my god!
So she and I sat and watched it. It was so fun. I'd never watched it before.
Oh, cool.
And it was delightful to like watch that and kind of like re-experience that. It was so funny to look back.
Did we put that up for everyone during Summer Jam? Is that public now, or was that on Patreon?
I can't remember. I am obviously on patreon.com.
I think we might have pulled it down after
Yeah.
Summer Jam. Yeah.
It was up for a bit and then back in the vault.
Hey, perfect excuse to become a patron. We are going to be doing more behind the scenes bits and bobs. Me and Frank have been planning some madness around some of our shoots.
Nice.
Yeah, so yeah, go check out the Dancing Salaryman. Go check out the secret police guy who asked us to stop filming in Akihabara. All the good stuff. That was a good time. That was a lot of fun. Good fun. All right, is that it? I think that's it. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this podcast where we basically didn't talk about anything for an hour. You are the truest.
Nintendo.
You are the truest fans, for sure. Hey, we turned up. We still turned up and did it. Even though we couldn't. And here's the thing. Look, hand on heart, this is a selfish act. This is not an act of bravery, editorial bravery, or trying to protect you. I just don't want to get spoiled either. I don't want to hear what Jeremy's been doing in the Tears of the Kingdom Zelda game. I don't want to hear what Frank's been doing. Not now. They don't want to hear what I've been doing. We're all just like, it's like a bunch of raging alcoholics at an AA meeting trying to talk about something they have in common that is not drinking booze. So that's why we're here talking about fucking woodworking and cheap. What was his name? Kibi. And what did Frank talk about? Frank, what did you talk about?
Other than Zelda,
Frank's got nothing going on.
Yeah.
He's just like living in Zelda world.
I did order Guitar Hero World Tour because I found out you can play as Hayley Williams from Paramore. And
What
I
is up with this new Paramore kick? Have you just become a Paramore fan
yes,
like in the past
they're
2 weeks?
so good. I know. So Hayley Williams showed up in my TikTok feed like
Wow.
a few weeks. They're on tour right now.
They are. They're on a big tour.
And
I
I
think they
regret
were
not-
also. I think they were on the Taylor Swift tour for a couple of days too.
Oh man. See, they're finally getting their big break. I've been on this
Long
big kick.
overdue.
I've been on this big kick of just like rethinking everything and giving things a second shot. And so I've been like skimming through emo music, like early 2000s pop punk kind of stuff. And Paramore was a band I always dismissed. And Hayley Williams showed up on my TikTok feed. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Oh, she's really cute. And then I got into Riot. I'm like, oh my God, this album is awesome. I've been listening to Misery Business nonstop. I listen to Paramore when I ride my bike. And it's great because the start of Paramore's self-titled album is like Fast in My Car. So I'll start riding my bike and I'll hit that song and it's like, I'm going fast in my car, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. And so it's really good. And so now I'm going down the web hole of Paramore stuff. And I found out that they're featured in Guitar Hero World Tour. Haley Williams was scanned and is in the game.
Oh,
so you
man.
can play as Haley Williams. And then, resale tickets to see them are like $200. I don't think I'll go, but I don't know. I really want to see Paramore. I regret it because I used to go to Warped Tour every summer.
Right.
And I'm sure I walked past Paramore playing at Warped Tour.
Oh, yeah.
My friend I went with
dude.
was obsessed. And I was like, yeah, whatever. That's lame. I want to go see these ska bands. I was there to see ska at Warped Tour, not
What's
Haley
the
Williams.
worst band you've walked away from at a
Man.
festival? I have some corkers. I'm still not really a Metallica fan, and when I was at Rock am Ring in Germany in like maybe 2006, they played Enter Sandman from start to finish, and I just pieced out and went to like some other thing. And then the other band was Tool, I think, played right before them, and I also just decided, I've seen Tool since, but like at the time, like, you know, it would have been impossible to see Tool in Ireland, definitely, and I just wasn't a fan of theirs yet. I didn't really give a shit, and I think that was the same night I like didn't see Master Puppets from start to finish and Tool, which seemed like, you know, maybe not the best idea.
Sorry, go ahead, Frank.
I think I went to Ozfest like 2003, and I think we left when Black Sabbath was going on. Because
I think that's more common than we
saw. I think we saw Korn, we saw Slayer.
Perfect. Yeah.
But it was like we were there for the seventh grade for me, new metal. Like, so it was like, I don't think we saw System of a Down there, or maybe I don't know if they played that, but like it was like we saw some, you know, good music. As soon as Black Sabbath, like, yeah, let's get out of here. So I did, like, Ozzy was starting, and we're like, yeah, the old man, let's leave, and then we left. But yeah, so Ozfest 2004. Now I want to look up the lineup.
I'm looking up the set list on World Tour because I also bought Guitar Hero World Tour because I think specifically there's a couple of Interpol songs on it. There's a couple of Tool songs. I think Parabola's on it, and I want to say Everlong and like a couple of other songs. There's a Mars Volta track on there as well. There's a couple of really good, and it was a big set. Guitar Hero World Tour has got like a shitload of songs on it. Like it's like 30 something songs or something.
It's a lot. No Effects is on there. Like I'm excited to dive in. Like I also like dismissed it because at the time I went all in on Rock Band and was like, yeah. So I skipped. I skipped World Tour.
Oh, it was Vicarious is on it too. So I was like playing the drums. I was all drums for the Tool songs because they're like, you know, whatever, 15 minutes long, and the drumming is pretty badass in those songs. Man.
I walked away from seeing John Carpenter one time. John Carpenter was playing music on stage.
You're like the fucking biggest carpenter in the world now, and you wouldn't even listen to your most famous
the most famous
singing
carpenter. Probably the second most famous carpenter after Jesus is John Carpenter.
That's true. And the band, the Carpenters, of course.
And the band, the Carpenters, is probably third, coming in at third. But yeah, Arca was playing. I don't know if you guys know Arca, but Arca was playing a set inside. So I left John Carpenter playing outside to go see the sweatiest, experimental set I've ever seen in my life.
Wow. Was Jesus a carpenter or was it his dad? I know Joseph was a carpenter. Was Jesus also? I mean, I'm not going to say that the fucking Son of God can't do a mortise and tenon joint, but like,
let's do a little Google here. Was Jesus a carpenter? Yes, Jesus worked in carpentry according to Angel.com.
Hey man, if anyone's gonna know,
it's Angel.com.
Angel.com. You sure you're not on Angle.com, the woodworking website?
Yeah, I think they're a little biased. The fix is in on this. They're like, yeah, he really cut a good dovetail joint.
Yeah. So was Buddha. And
so yeah, they were all carpenters. Yeah. It's actually the holiest act.
It's not unholy. I'll say that. It's beautiful.
Magical. Bringing two pieces of wood together is a godly act.
All right, we've successfully stalled and done a podcast for 60 minutes. Let's call an end to it. Thank you all so much for checking us out. We are working on a shed load. I know it sounds like we're dossing off here. We're working on a shed load of documentaries. I actually have a secret list here which has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 current projects that we're working on. The ones we can talk about are Choo Choo Charles, which will be out in the next week or so. I think I'll have it up for patrons next week at some stage, late next week. Vampire Survivors, Dwarf Fortress, Immortality, of course, we are doing our documentary on the Burger King games. I had an interview with Philip Oliver of the Oliver Twins 2 weeks ago. It was hilarious. He talked a lot about the Burger King games. We're talking to more people about those Burger King games. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 docs we can't talk about. And then Hyperlight Development Episode 3, of course, is coming out too. I am actually recording a documentary tomorrow. I'm catching up with somebody we interviewed a number of years ago when I was based out here in on the East Coast, here in the DMV area in Greater Maryland, and I'm catching up with somebody who we interviewed back in the Bethesda documentary about a project that they're working on solo. So if you know, you probably know who it is, and if you don't know, we'll have it up on Noclip in the next couple of months. But like I said before, if you'd like to support our work, fund our documentaries and all that badness, go to patreon.com/noclip. We are definitely overdue a funding push, my folks. I'll tell you that much. We're going to be doing that next month with the tapes, the big tape reveal as well. One annoying thing, speaking of music, is I have a 1080i perfect feed of the Microsoft 2008, I think it is, the Xbox 360, basically the Kinect Don Matrick E3 conference. It's 2.5 hours long. It looks amazing. It's the best quality one that is available anywhere in the world. We'll be putting it up on YouTube and archive.org as part of our big videotape preservation project, which we have mostly been secretly talking to the patrons. I guess I'm talking about now. The only problem is if I stick it up on YouTube, because it starts with a Beatles rock band trailer, it gets blocked. Like, not even like, oh, you can post this and don't put ads on it, which we wouldn't have done anyway. It straight up says Apple or whoever owns the rights to the Beatles music, Apple Records, not Apple, the tech company, are like, nope, can't post this. So we will be posting it to archive, and then I'll probably have to do like a little intro video that's explaining why the first 40 seconds of this video have no audio in them, because we can't put it up on screen, and I also can't start the video with no audio because it'll just be like, oh, is this the whole 2.5 hours have no audio? So that's a bit of a pain in the ass, but
You could do like a lead-in, or you could sing the song yourself.
that's yeah. And in a hot days. Actually, I shouldn't do it now because it might.
We're gonna get DFCA.
The YouTube bots might take this podcast down. You're right.
It's too accurate.
Let's call an end to it. Jeremy, what are you doing for the rest of your week?
Oh, man, I've been doing a lot of game dev, a lot of Zelda, a lot of editing the Immortality doc. The Immortality doc, let me just say.
How's it going? I haven't.
It's
Give me.
Yeah.
Let's do the meeting right now. How's it going?
It's going so good. It's a real girthy one. There's a lot of material to work with here. But the section but obviously we had Sam Barlow on the podcast semi recently talking about immortality and sort of the inception of the project. And I took the section of him talking about where the idea came from, and I found every single like ultra specific reference, like this interview from Letterman in the 80s, this BFI interview from the 60s with Olivia Hussey, like this clip of like Gene Seberg from like the Ed Sullivan Show. Every single one I have found the exact moment.
Oh my God.
And it is like I think it might be my favorite thing I've ever edited in my entire life. Because the whole like, I won't talk about Immortality spoilers because people may have not played it, so I don't want to talk about it here because they're not opting into that. But obviously, the one of the themes is obviously the mistreatment of women in Hollywood. That is not spoilery to say at all. And there are so many specific like visual cues that are directly reflecting what Sam is saying about these interviews. So one of them is Gene Seberg as a teenager being announced as the lead actress in Otto Preminger's Joan of Arc movie. And they parade her out on stage because they did this nationwide or like worldwide search for her, where they auditioned 18,000 different young women for the role, and she was like this teenager from Iowa who
She's
got
like
it.
15 or something, right?
Yeah, incredibly young. And so they parade her out on stage, and the body language in this clip, as Sam is talking about the treatment of women in Hollywood and talking about the specific clip, is she's standing between Preminger and I think it's Ed Sullivan, the like talk show host of the day, and the host is talking about her and grabs her by the arm like she's like the
prop.
Yes, the body language of this moment is him grabbing her as if they're at like a cattle auction, and he's like dragging her out for sale. It is unbelievably tense. And yeah, I don't know. I think that this section of the doc is so important to me because like when Sam tells you about these things, you get this visceral image of old Hollywood and the mistreatment of these people. But when you see these people on screen and their body language and the way that they're like trying to like put on a weird smile as someone is like, "Oh, so what? You're 15? You got a nice body though."
Right.
It's like it's so visceral. I feel like it felt very important to edit and to put this section together because I feel like it's really it's like the game is obviously speaking to injustice in Hollywood and sort of rooting that in the real world examples that gave birth to this project. It felt very like special and important and also incredibly depressing. But
right.
Just like steeping myself in sort of like Hollywood lore and finding all these uber specific references, it's like maybe my favorite section of any doc I've ever edited.
Damn. Okay, my big production hat question for you is, do we already have too much meat on this bone? Because we do have a bunch of other interviews that are lined up for this. Do they need to be quite short and to the point, maybe?
I definitely was going to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
Are
we good? Because like there's an angle on this where we just talk about the actors, which I think would also be probably fine. But yeah. What do you think?
There's like, I could see a world in which we add a little bit more talk about the actual production itself, but I feel like the actors spoke to their experience so well, and there's like the way that I edit is I've realized that my job is being a very complex, sophisticated sorting algorithm because essentially what I do is go through all the interviews.
AI is going to take your job, man.
Yeah, eventually. Although it requires so. I was thinking about this. I was like smoking a little weed last night and thinking about editing, and I was like, man, I really am just like, I wonder how long until the AI can do this. Because it's just going through all these things, finding all the like bits that are related, and then shuffling them around, and then just doing that 1,000 times until there's a documentary, you know? And you're just like slicing and arranging and slicing and arranging. It's literally just the sorting algorithms where it goes like whoop and lines them up. But yeah, it's a huge documentary as is, and I've sorting algorithmed the shit out of this thing.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of ingredients. Like if you're bringing, another bag of onions into the kitchen, it's going to get crazy in here.
Yeah, I'm thinking that too. Because are we good with Sam, do you think? Do we have enough of Sam?
I think if we got another interview with Sam, it would needlessly complicate things because I feel like his role in the documentary is speaking to the inception of the project, and then it kind of gets us to the actors being like, oh, and Sam was so great, and then it becomes more about their experience. You know what I mean?
Cool. So maybe Natalie, I think, from a production perspective.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I think do we need the intimacy coordinator? If we have them talking about it, do we need their perspective on it? I don't know. I feel like I have a section for the intimacy coordinator and like the intimacy stuff set aside as kind of a modular little piece of the doc that could take it or leave it. I don't necessarily know if we need the intimacy coordinator to speak to it because I feel like the crew, they talk about what the intimacy coordinator role is and what that person does on set. But I feel like the kind of important perspective is the person who's being protected by the intimacy coordinator more so. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I could probably contextualize that with VO maybe.
Yeah. Like if your like penis is out on set and someone's throwing a little blanket over it, it's like
in my case a large blanket.
In my case a large quilt. If someone's bringing out the courtesy
Bayeux tapestry you need for my
someone's bringing out a California king size quilt to cover your enormous penis on set. I feel like the experience that you want to hear about is the person who's like in the vulnerable position, I guess.
We're just lads being lads here on the podcast. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. So maybe okay, we'll chat about it. Maybe sprinkle in some Natalie and Natalie Watson, of course, a friend of Noclip's, a friend of anyone who followed Waypoint over the years as well, award-winning producer, who made this whole thing to come together. And maybe, what do you think about? We also have options to interview the DP and the sound editor.
I feel like my desire to interview those people is rooted more in a sense of wanting to give them a voice, but when I actually think about what the documentary needs, I feel like it's muddying the waters a little bit on the like it's so laser focused on the experience of the actors right now, and I kind of feel like that's working. And also, like, it's an incredibly long assembly cut right now,
Right.
as is.
How long
And
is it? Does it look like in 90
It's like-
minutes?
Well, it's the kind of thing where when the 2-hour Black Mesa documentary was like a 4-hour assembly cut.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I would say we have like a 3-hour Immortality documentary right now.
Okay.
And each pass I do now is sort of like getting it from a 5-hour to a 4-hour, getting it from a 4 to a 3.
Yeah.
And to now I need to do a few more of those to get it down to like probably more than an hour, definitely less than 2.
Okay, I'm with you on this. This is and thank you to everyone who's still listening to the podcast, because this literally turned into a production meeting. Yeah, I think my worry was the same thing, was that we end up over the more people you have involved, and especially if they're remote, like, you know, Sam's obviously a remote one because that's the podcast, but the rest of it was all filmed in person and that all looks beautiful. Natalie, if we can, even if we cut everything else except for Natalie Watson, then maybe we use her as a like narrative thread, like almost like I'd use the VO. Like I can, if we know the 4 or 5 parts that we need to connect, we could almost use a conversation with Natalie to piece those together instead of using voiceover.
I have very specific notes about where that connective tissue is
Cool.
too, and I've already like written this is Danny says something like, and then there's like a little you know what I mean.
Cool. All right, let's see about that. I'll get back to her and see how that sounds. But you're right. I think, like, and to folks listening, this is maybe the toughest thing about our job, is that we try really hard to give as many people, like the whole point of Noclip was not to just talk to the creative director of a game. It was to talk to the sound editor who never gets to talk about their job, or the such and such. And I think the hardest thing about doing these is that the more, it's not like every one interview you adds like an extra 2 days. It's like logarithmic or whatever. It's like every interview you add is like double. It's like the Fibonacci sequence. It's like double what the previous one was to try and fit it in. So if you're like, the hardest docs I've ever worked on were like the Crystal Dynamics one was like, you know, I think it was 15 people. The CD Projekt thing ended up getting split up into 6 videos because we interviewed 20 something people. So it's really, really, really hard. So, and I like you said, I think talking to the actors was the whole point of this in the first place, because we've never talked to actors on Noclip. So it's a whole new, fresh perspective. And although I'd love to talk to the DP and I'd love to talk to the intimacy coordinator, like you said, I think, you know, we can give them their shout outs somewhere else in there without bothering them, perhaps.
There's also so many extras for this that I feel like there's a world in which we could do like a B-side documentary for
Cool.
Immortality at some point. Like,
if it needs to get split in 2, if there's a natural cut point for this thing to be 2 parts, I don't care. Like
yeah,
think
I think
about it.
I think it'll work as I think it works very well as one long cohesive block, and then I think there's enough like interesting tidbits that they don't feel like they're necessary pieces of information that educate you a lot about how Immortality was made or give you a lot of insight, but they're kind of like fun extras or like funny moments. There's like one moment where you made Charlotta laugh really hard, and it doesn't work for the documentary, but I think it's a really cute moment. So
Cool.
I don't know. I think there'd be good, like there's probably a good like patron extras video somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'd love to. And some of these I bet we could put up unedited. The conversation I had with Charlotta was like very personal, I feel like.
Yeah.
It was very like, yeah, it was like, I felt like I was at a bar talking to a friend about how ugly the world is or something. It was, yeah, she was amazing. All right. This is going to be such a weird documentary because the subset of people who have played Immortality, who have completed Immortality, and will watch a 90-minute or 60-minute or whatever it is video about Immortality, I think is probably getting pretty refined, but we're going to end up making something that is like their, you know, will be their, hopefully their favorite Immortality related non-Immortality content or whatever.
I think it's like the way I'm feeling about it is it feels like it's going to be like a definitive adjunct piece of Immortality, because hearing these people speak to their experience in such depth is like it has enhanced my love of Immortality, which was already one of my favorite games of the last few years. And yeah, it's also, when you look up information about these actors, there's not a lot of, like, if you look up Mano Gage, there's not like a Wikipedia that has like an
Right.
intense biography. So I've on one level I'm trying to like pare it down to the essentials of the production experience, and on another level I'm like, do I like everyone tells their kind of background, and all of them are so interesting. Like the guy who plays Durik talks about being
Yeah.
a sensitive kid and then having to like double down on being more masculine, and I feel like that energy is captured so well in his role as Durik that I'm like, this anecdote is too like it doesn't make sense here, but it's like essential for understanding why
Dude,
he's so good as that character.
Here's the other thing. If you want to do the VO of this one, like if you want, because if you want to speak to that, if you want to write the script and be the host and speak to those moments, like if I'm totally cool with that too. Like this.
Okay,
was,
cool. Yeah, we can talk about it.
Yeah, because this was, and I'm happy to do it as well. But this was a game that you largely brought to the table last year for the rest of us to enjoy too. You know what I mean? Like you convinced me to play this as well.
I'm glad you did because it's so cool.
Yeah, it's terrific. I wished I wasn't sleeping in the studio with COVID while I was playing it because it was kind of scary.
It's the ARG.
That was the longest. What are you doing for the rest of your week ever, Frank? What are you doing for the rest of your week?
Fast and Furious comes out tomorrow.
Oh, man.
IMAX. I'm
Family.
so excited.
Family. I hope you enjoy it. Is this the final one? Is that what they're saying?
No, this is part 1 of a 3-part finale.
No, is it really?
Yes.
Oh
yes.
my God. Christ.
Yes. Fast 10 is part 1 of a 3-part finale, and The Rock is going to be back after saying no. Black Adam bombed so hard. So I can't
Wow.
wait. Early reviews, people are saying it's terrible. I'm going to love it. I'm so
Great.
excited.
Are they going to go Final Fantasy naming convention on this one? Fast and the Furious
Final
10,
Fantasy 10,
10, 2,
X3.
10, 2?
I don't know. I can't wait to see what this is gonna be. The last one was so funny. It's gonna be a good time.
I like you said funny, not good. And I think that's the
Yeah.
most important thing about the beautiful. This is what cinema is now. We just go. I went just so I could look at some beautiful tilt-shifted Mario people, and Back in Black, and you were because of, whatever. That's it. I'm very tired. Apologies if this is a rambling podcast. I haven't slept well for the past 3 days. Having a great time in Maryland. Gonna go to Wawa now. Have some Old Bay on some crab. Insert other Maryland reference here, and we'll see you next week. Back in the beautiful state of California, all 3 of us. Talk to you then. Bye.